A fusion of our lightest and fastest road race bikes. That is the new Madon Gen 8.
With the new Gen 8 Madon, you really don't need two race bikes anymore. It provides that snappiness and lightweight ride of the Amonda, but still provides that sort of feeling of speed that you can only get on a Madon, and encapsulates that into one single bike platform. If you're an Amonda rider, you're getting a much, much faster bike with a new Madon, but it's the same weight. If you're a Madon rider, you're getting a bike that's much, much lighter weight, but it's the same aerodynamics. It's that concept of no compromises that finally achieved that goal to merge those two platforms into one. And so every rider, whether you're a professional rider or you're just simply doing the Sunday group ride, you benefit from the new platform because it's really the best of both worlds. One of the challenges that we've always had since we've had two race bike platforms is something that really bears out with our Lidl Trek team riders. And we have a discussion with them annually where we sit down with them, the engineering and development team, and sort of ask them questions about their bikes, what they'd want to change. And one of the things that repeatedly came up whenever we talked about the Madon or the Amonda was that they would sort of lament or stress over which bike was right for them, specific to their job on the team or for a specific race course. I think one of the pieces about the development of this bike that really fed into it was their specific feedback, but also this longer term relationship that we've developed through the riders where they're constantly providing us feedback and we're using that to think about what's the next race bike that we're going to develop. And it's this continuous feedback loop that we're getting from them. For us, this new Madon was really a product for them. It's for our riders, but it's also for professional riders in our team. And it was delivering on an expectation from them to say that they want to race the best bike in the world and that that's their expectation that we need to deliver for them. And I think we're really excited because as they've ridden prototypes of the bike and been along for the development of this bike, they're asking for the bike as soon as they can get it because they see the opportunity, they see the benefits that this new bike provides.
I'm gonna steal this bike.
The concept of a single race bike has been out there for a while, and one of the reasons that we haven't done that previously was it just required too much compromise. So if it was someone who climbs a lot or someone who values a bike that accelerates really quickly or has a really snappy ride feel, you'd have to sacrifice some of that aerodynamics to take further weight out of the bike. If you were the rider who really benefited from aerodynamics or really wanted that side of the performance spectrum, it wouldn't be as lightweight. And so you'd end up with a single bike that's sort of middling in performance and not to the benefit of either rider. When we started the R&D process for this bike, it was actually originally intended on being the R&D of the next generation of Amonda.
We were trying to reduce the weight of that bike while keeping all the aerodynamic benefits of the Amonda. We had just got back from our first wind tunnel trip, and we were starting to get our initial structural analysis results in as well.
We figured out that we could make this really super lightweight bike, but also with aerodynamics that were approaching the performance of the current Madon.
Making a bike that was Madon fast and Amonda light seemed pretty out there.
We got through a couple prototypes, some modeling, wind tunnel trips, some structural analysis, and we realized that there was an opportunity to swing for the fences and make something completely new.
Maybe we need to take a step back and look at how we package these things together into a different bike or one bike instead of the two bike family that we'd previously had.
Amonda, Madon, something else entirely.
If anything, we were our own biggest internal critics of the concept. Like, we embraced it from a rider's perspective of there's a lot of simplicity behind the idea of it. The skepticism came with whether or not we were actually able to execute this no compromises concept.
We drew a plot on the whiteboard of weight versus aerodynamics, and we put a big X on there and said, this is our BHAG. When I would give a project update, it would show like, you know, weight, aerodynamics, the BHAG, and it would show where Madon is, where Amonda is, and it would show where our latest prototypes were as we like converged on that BHAG. When
we entered into this project, engineering was pretty terrified.
We were really just trying to get as close as we could.
I kind of knew we could do it the whole time.
We knew that we were going to come really close. The only way that that bike would truly be successful for all of the riders that are on both of our platforms today is it need to be able to perform the same as Amonda and the same as the Madon.
We wanted to make sure we weren't just going down one narrow path on this bike. So we actually designed many different prototypes.
Every couple months, we'd get a little bit closer and realize, yeah, I think we're going to get there.
And it was only really halfway through the development process where we finally gained confidence of the idea of like that best of both worlds without compromises was a reality. That simplification or that opportunity to have one bike that can do it all, one bike that exceeds in every environment, it quickly morphed through that development process into becoming the next generation of the Madone.
The new Madone SLR Gen 8 frame set is over 320 grams lighter than the previous Madone Gen 7, and as light as Amonda. A new benchmark in weight for the ultimate race bike starts with a new benchmark in carbon fiber. 900 OCLV is up to 20% stronger than our previous top-tier carbon, allowing us to use less overall material and now making our lightest carbon laminate ever.
We were able to take two high-performing models, the Madone and the Amonda, and combine them into an even higher performing bike in the Generation 8 Madone by taking into account some new manufacturing processes in the OCLV 900 carbon. The material is carbon fiber that is more efficient at achieving the structural and weight needs that we need. And then new manufacturing process includes things like an inflatable mandrel, which improves compaction in the carbon fiber and also allows for a much cleaner interior to the tubes themselves, which means less wrinkles and less need for additional structural material. On any road bike, there are parts of the frame and the system in general where aerodynamics is really important and other parts where it is less important, and you can focus on reducing weight or improving stiffness. And we were able to use CFD and our structural analysis capabilities to really focus in on which areas of the frame should be getting the aerodynamic focus and which ones should be getting the structural focus. The fork is a really important part of the bike. It is a combination of aerodynamic significance, and also there's opportunity to reduce weight. And so that part of this bike platform got a particularly lot of attention. It's also a fairly large carbon structure, so you have to make sure you're keeping track of the weight impact for that.
Aside from a massive weight reduction, Madone Gen 8 also redefines what an aero bike looks like. Madone Gen 8 is 77 seconds per hour faster than Amonda and still just as fast as the previous Madone Gen 7.
Having a bike that just ignores aero altogether it's pretty much never the answer. You'd have to be always climbing up like 8% plus grade the entire time. Anything under that, it's going to make sense to add a little bit of weight and get a little bit of aero. So the aero shapes on the new Madone they look a lot different than previous aero shapes. We're calling them the full system foil shapes. Our previous generation was the camtail shapes. Old style aero shapes, we basically tried to get as deep of an airfoil as possible, thinking of the tube shapes as airfoils, like airplane wings. So you take a deep airfoil and you cut off the back, and that's a camtail. But now we have updated simulation methods, and we can get that same performance of a deep airfoil in a much more compact, lightweight shape. The process that we use to develop the new full system foil shapes is by and large the same. If you look at it from far away, as our previous generations, we have cutting edge optimization techniques that we use to have a computer generate thousands of different shapes. And we basically get a book of aero and lightweight shapes that we can choose from. But we've updated everything under the hood. We updated the aerodynamic simulations to be more accurate. We updated the shape itself to be more flexible and create those new style of shapes that the camtail just couldn't make because of the way that those shapes are generated. So the design engineer and I, we need to look through these shapes and select for a spot on the bike that's needs to be aero, select the most aero shape. For a spot that we know we can give up a little aero and need some more structural efficiency, then we find a shape that works better for that, and we build up the bike that way, and we build up many different prototypes and see what works and see what doesn't. When we designed our thousands of shapes that we build the frame up with, if you just get shapes that are fast by themselves, you might get a bike that's fast, just the frame alone and the wind tunnel, but it might not be fast with the wheels and the bottles and everything on it. included shapes that make not just that area of the bike faster, but the areas behind and in front of it to get it the fastest possible full system. You've got the down tube, the 2 aero bottles, and then the seat tube. As we took that slice and we designed all those shapes to work together to design one large airfoil. That way we can get the aero benefits of a really deep airfoil, but we don't have to have a huge section of carbon fiber that's going to be really heavy. So the air will come in. One of the first things it hits is the fork. We've designed the fork to be a nice aero shape. The legs are the draggiest, slowest part of that full system. So anything you can do to slow down or move the air around the legs is important. That's why we've got the handlebar thickened to slow down that flow. But you'll notice other parts of the bike don't look like those traditional aero shapes. An example there would be the down tube. The down tube is shaped with a pretty blunt front end because it's behind the wheel, which slows down the flow, so the leading edge doesn't matter as much. And then the sides are shaped to direct the flow around the down tube bottle and then move around the seat tube bottle and then back finally on the seat tube itself. But then after the legs, there is slow moving, low energy flow, and you want to add speed and energy to that flow. And so that's why we have isoflow with a gap to allow energy to get back into that slow moving region, and why we have a very fast aero shapes on the seat tube and the seat post to make sure that we are not sucking energy out of that crucial region. The RSL aero bottles and cages were optimized and designed specifically for the new Madon. We took our optimization techniques that we used for the full system foil and applied it to the aero bottles and the down tube and seat tube shapes on either end. So you'll get your maximum gains on the Gen 8 Madon. However, we also tested the aero bottles on a lot of different other bikes, aero bikes, comfort bikes, and we saw gains on every single bike that we tested. They do come with the SLR, so that's your full system that we optimized, but then they're also available for the SL if you want to add them on after the fact. So the new bar stem we've designed to be lightweight and aero and also comfortable to ride, and usually that requires a trade-off because an aero shape by itself is going to be deep, it's going to be heavy, and it's not going to be as comfortable to ride with if your hands are on the tops. But we came up with a new shape. We call it the chonky shape in our engineering when we were in the wind tunnel.
Chonky is just what we call it internally. It's just like a fun name for the bar. It makes us laugh.
So it's taking that aero shape and widening it. And that helps the structural efficiency. It helps to make the shape lighter, and it helps to make it more comfortable in your hands. But it usually would hurt in drag, but since it's in front of the legs, it conditions the flow and actually reduces the drag of the full system because we're reducing the speed of the air hitting your legs. And so on the Gen 7 Madon, we moved the hand position in on the handlebar 3 centimeters for every size bar. In our rider position research, we noticed that was much faster, and we maintained that same positioning on the new bike.
It doesn't matter if it's the fastest and lightest bike in the world if it doesn't have amazing ride feel and comfort. Madon's race-focused ISOFlow comfort technology is a groundbreaking way to keep the bike compliant. Now in its second iteration, ISOFlow is even lighter and more compliant than it was on the Gen 7 Madon, and more compliant than Amonda.
We had to take into account important things like riding like a trek. We had to make sure that this bike looks awesome, and we had to make sure that this bike was fun to ride and comfortable to ride. All of those interact with each other in specific ways, and so getting them all to play together nicely to come up with this bike was a huge project. You'll notice that Generation 8 Madon ISOFlow is not a cut and copy from the Generation 7. And so the very first part of this project was to determine, is ISOFlow going to carry on to this generation? So we spent 3 or 4 months iterating on different models, different concepts, pushing the boundaries of UCI legality on completely different top tube to seat stay junctions. Drop stays is an example of something that performs really well, and we see competitors in the market that create bikes that are very high performing. But for us, it wasn't going to be able to provide the ride quality and the weight savings that we are looking for while achieving that ride quality. We're basically looking at 3 parameters. We're looking at weight, aerodynamic impact, and comfort. The combination of those can be tricky, especially to model using FEA and CFD. And so we also created prototypes to bring to the wind tunnel to validate all of that. We looked at larger isoflow holes, smaller isoflow holes, different locations vertically in space. We also looked at different lead-ins and exits for the surfacing around it. As a result of what we were able to change from the previous version, we're able to have 80% more vertical compliance at no cost to aerodynamics or weight. So it brings the right amount of comfort in the vertical compliance that we measure in our stiffness test. And it brings the right amount of weight savings over other versions of that top tube, seat stay junction.
ISOFLOW won out again because of the aero, the comfort, and the lightweight. We did make some subtle updates to it.
We reduced the size of the hole a little bit and changed the aerodynamic shaping that actually goes through the hole in order to better optimize for the airflow there.
Madone comes with 28mm tires, the perfect size for racing, but it can fit up to 32mm tires for even more comfortable ride, or taking on bumpier races like the cobbles of Roubaix. Madone's road race geometry and fit also sets you up to ride your best on race day and fast group rides. The geometry puts you in a quick aero position while keeping you centered on the bike, so you're always going your fastest no matter the terrain.
When we were making the new road race geometry, we wanted to make sure we're fitting a realistic race population. So we took real data from our precision fit system, and then our data analyst in-house expanded that data set. We picked the race fits out of that and made sure that all of those were going to fit on these bikes when we developed the sizing. We're not getting rid of 1.5. People like our H1.5 geometry now, so we were really cognizant of not changing that. The new road race geometry is within millimeters of our old one, and riders shouldn't really notice a difference. The new road race geometry, we went from 8 sizes to 6. With the 8 sizes, there was some overlap, so it could be kind of confusing for riders when they were choosing their size, knowing what frame they wanted to be on. With 6, they butt up to each other really nicely, and it's very obvious which size a rider should be on, and we're actually able to cover more people than we were before. We have taller and lower saddle heights with just those 6 sizes. Tall riders and short riders actually should fit better on the new race sizing because we have lower and higher saddle heights at our bookend sizes. We heard feedback, especially even at the tall end more so, that they weren't able to get their saddles high enough. So we're actually able to fit more people, and we used a huge fit cloud of data to make sure that we're still fitting the race population that wants to get on these bikes. On current Madone and Amonda, we go from 47 to 62. Our new sizing is alpha sizing, so it goes from extra small to extra large, and it fits that exact same range. When we work with the race team, we like getting their feedback on all aspects of the bike. For geometry, we obviously wanted to make sure that all of our riders could fit on this bike. Throughout the size range, nobody's going to need anything special. All of them had glowing reviews. They didn't feel differences. They felt at home on the bike really quickly, which is not always the case. It was very validating after doing all of the development with this bike.
Madone now also comes with size-specific tube shapes. This means that tube shapes are optimized around both larger and smaller frame sizes. This gives racers of all different sizes the best-looking bike with amazing compliance and even lighter weight design for smaller sizes.
In the past, when we're looking at tube shaping, we have one shape, just a medium large or a 56 with that size, and then we scale from there for all of our bikes. You wouldn't get as light on the small frames as you might expect. The weight of the bike as a percentage compared to their weight is so much higher, and they're being penalized for that. And something that we did differently for the new Madone, which I'm really excited about because it benefits smaller riders specifically, is we had a second tube shape that we used for the lower half of our size range. With this range, we are getting lighter bikes at the smaller sizes because we're designing specifically for those smaller sizes. So this time around, it was really cool. We were able to bring 2 bikes to the wind tunnel and test both of those and make sure that we're getting the benefits and the speed and the light quickness that we're seeing in the top end. We're still getting that in the small sizes when we're scaling down. The big sizes are still optimized. They're still getting the best in aerodynamic stiffness, weight that we can produce, and we made sure of that across the whole size range. I'm a smaller rider, and I'm excited that we're being thought of so much more in this bike. The Gen 7 was light, but I'm expecting this one to be even lighter, and not just because the whole platform is lighter, but because we thought about, my size when they were going through it.
Madone comes in 2 different levels, SL and SLR.
The Madone SL and SLR frame sets are almost identical in their feature set. Really, the only difference between the Madon SL frame set and the SLR frame set is in the carbon level and therefore weight. Madon SL uses OCLV 500, Madon SLR uses OCLV 900, whereas the SLR bikes use our one-piece carbon bar stem for sort of the ultimate in performance in cockpits. That new bar stem has the identical drop shape to the previous Madon bar stem, which means that the drops are 3 centimeters wider than the hoods. And what that does is provide a really strong control position in the drops, but provides a huge aerodynamic advantage when you're in the hoods. All of the Madon SLs come with handlebars that share a very similar shape and flare to what the Madon SLRs have, and all share the same RCS integrated stem. That stem allows for you to be able to use any 31/8 handlebar on it, but still provides a really integrated look. And then the SL is compatible with mechanical drivetrains. So you can use, as we have on the SL5, a 105 12-speed mechanical drivetrain, whereas the SLRs are exclusively electronic drivetrains. The new Gen 8 Madon SL is actually a better performing race road bike than our previous Gen 7 Madon SLR. So if you think of that, Gen 7 Madon SLR was the best performing, fastest road bike Trek had ever made. Now our highest value road race bike is both lighter weight in chassis weight and the same aerodynamics, but providing an amazing value to the rider. One of the concepts that we've been pursuing across all Trek road bikes is really standardizing things that can be shared components across more of our platforms in that Trek road family. So really that started with the T47 bottom bracket system that's across all Trek road platforms now. For the new Gen 8 Madon, that's extended to the inclusion of UDH in the universal headset system. For us, that was really an intuitive decision to say these parts don't need to be differentiated for the performance of the product, but the rider and the dealers are going to benefit from being able to find those parts much easier and making them interchangeable between different Trek road platforms.
The best way to buy Madon SLR is through our Project One program. Project One Custom lets you easily design your dream Madon with the exact paint, wheels, crank length, handlebar sizing, parts, and fit that you want.
Right now I'm riding the new 25 Madon. A masterpiece, a world-class bike. So light and still so aerodynamic. And to be honest, in the beginning I didn't believe it. But now when I'm riding the bike more and more, I believe it. I can't wait to start racing it.